Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. Rescue workers race against the clock, searching for any remaining survivors among mud and wreckage after devastating flash floods and landslides hit the picturesque Brazilian city of Petropolis, killing dozens. Russia announces more pullbacks of troops from the Ukrainian border despite Washington's insistence that Moscow is continuing to build up forces for a potential invasion of its pro-Western neighbor. The family of a woman shot by Alec Baldwin on the set of the movie Rust sued the U.S. actor, claiming substantial damages for her wrongful death. And later, Esther Odanga takes us to a Candyland-themed dessert park in Pattaya. First in our news, rescue workers are racing against the clock, searching for any remaining survivors among the mud and wreckage after devastating flash floods and landslides hit the picturesque Brazilian city of Petropolis, killing dozens. Take a look.
É muito triste mesmo. Entendeu? As pessoas não dormem, ficam acordadas. Outras ficam procurando ali, gritando, né, seus entes queridos. Então é bem complicado, entendeu? A gente sente por eles também.
Em lugares, as equipes são 24 horas. Não vai parar busca nenhuma, vai continuar, a não ser que na parte da técnica diga que por 1 hora ou 2 tem que parar. E aí a técnica que diz não somos nós, depende do volume de chuvas, mas na normalidade não se para nada.
Streets were turned into torrential rivers and houses swept away when heavy storms dumped a month's worth of rain in 3 hours on the scenic tourist town in the hills north of Rio de Janeiro. Around 300 people were being housed in shelters, mostly in schools, according to officials. Charities called for donations of mattresses, food, water, clothing, and face masks for the victims. Petropolis is a popular destination for tourists fleeing the summer heat of Rio. The area is also known for its leafy streets, stately homes, imperial palace, today a museum, and the natural beauty of the surrounding mountains. Tuesday's storms dumped 258 millimeters or 10 inches of rain on the city in 3 hours. That's nearly equal to all the rainfall from the previous month, that according to the mayor's office. Brazil has been swept by heavy rain since December that caused a series of deadly floods and landslides. And experts say rainy season downpours are being augmented by La Nina, the cyclical cooling of the Pacific Ocean, and by the impact of climate change. Because a warmer atmosphere holds more water, global warming increases the risk and intensity of flooding from extreme rainfall. In other extreme weather news, the coastal Madagascar town of Mananjeri was largely destroyed after tropical cyclone Baturai, according to aid workers, as more relief supplies arrived by plane. The storm left 121 people dead, mainly on the east coast of the Indian Ocean island nation, which took the hardest hit. Take a look.
Lieu qui est très défavorable puisque sur les zones impactées, c'est-à-dire dans la région de Mananjar et le lieu du passage du cyclone, on a 80% des habitations qui sont endommagées ou détruites. Donc c'est vraiment énorme et on a donc pratiquement 130 000 personnes qui aujourd'hui attendent à ce que leurs habitations puissent être reconstruites.
More than 29,000 people remain displaced across 79 different sites, and nearly 19,000 homes have been destroyed, flooded, or damaged, according to a news release issued on OCHA's Relief Web platform. More than 133,000 children have lost access to schooling, while more than 4,500 classrooms have been destroyed. At least 69 health facilities have been affected, including the district hospital in the east coast town of Mananjeri, which is currently not operational. Relief efforts are being scaled up while the government is repairing basic infrastructure. Local communities and authorities are on alert as a new tropical depression is forming in the Indian Ocean, heading again towards Madagascar. Meanwhile, a heavy storm swept across Germany on the night of Wednesday into Thursday, grounding flights and trains and forcing schools in several states to close. Now, police are warning residents to stay home and avoid parks or forests as gale force winds whipped in from the north of the country. The strongest winds were felt on Brocken, the highest point in the Harz Highlands in central Germany, with speeds of up to 152 kilometers per hour. Long-distance trains were halted throughout northern Germany, including in Hamburg, Berlin, and Bremen, until midday on Thursday at the earliest, the national rail operator Deutsche Bahn said. Significant cancellations and delays were also expected on regional services. The airline Lufthansa canceled 20 flights destined for Hamburg, Berlin, and Munich, departing from Frankfurt, the country's largest airport. The storm, which was raging over the north of Hesse-Saxony and southern Brandenburg in the east and central part of the country, on Thursday is expected to persist through Friday. New hurricane-force gales are expected in the night to Saturday in northern and central Germany. Meanwhile, Britain's Meteorological Service issued a rare red weather warning, with storm Eunice packing wind gusts of 100 miles per hour and set to cause danger to life. The storm is currently barreling its way across the Atlantic and is expected to cause significant disruption and dangerous conditions due to extremely strong winds when it makes landfall on Friday, according to the Met Office. Ireland's Meteorological Office also issued an alert for Storm Eunice, warning of severe and damaging winds and the possibility of coastal flooding. Another storm, Dudley, caused transport disruption when it hit Britain on Wednesday, although damage was not widespread. The government announced on Thursday that it was holding a meeting of its emergency COBRA committee to discuss the response to the two storms. The Met Office warned that roofs could be blown off, trees uprooted, and power lines brought down when Eunice arrives, with southwest England expected to bear the brunt. To the Ukraine crisis now, the United States dismissed reports that Russia was withdrawing troops from Ukraine's border, instead accused Moscow of sending more soldiers as fears of an invasion grow. A senior official said that Russia has, in fact, added as many as 7,000 more troops as recently as today. Take a look.
To ask questions is our job. But those efforts, as we've said, will be effective only if the Russian Federation is willing to de-escalate. To be very, very clear, we have not seen that. In fact, we have seen the opposite in recent weeks and even in recent days. More Russian forces, not fewer, are at the border, and they are moving, concerningly, into fighting positions. This is cause for profound concern. Over the past several weeks, we've also seen Russian officials and Russian media plant numerous stories in the press, any one of which could be elevated to serve as a pretext for an invasion. This could happen, we are concerned, at any time, and the world should be ready for it. It could involve claims about Ukrainian military activity in the Donbass, false claims of US or NATO activities on land, at sea, or air.
Now, Russia earlier today announced a new drawdown of military forces from the Moscow-annexed Crimean Peninsula, despite Ukraine's Western allies meeting similar announcements with skepticism. NATO, the United States, and European leaders have denied, however, that there is any meaningful pullback of Russian troops. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow's military personnel were actually rotating. And NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance is now looking to step up efforts to strengthen its eastern flank.
Ситуація контрольована нашими військовими. Ми не бачимо зараз змін, і в доповіді було. Ми бачимо велике накопичування військ, воно не змінюється за останні вже тижні. Ми бачимо ті чи інші невеличкі ротації. Я б не називав би сьогодні ці ротації відведенням військ з боку Російської Федерації. Ми не можемо це констатувати.
Therefore today, ministers decided to develop options for further strengthen NATO's deterrence and defense, including to consider establishing new NATO battle groups in Central and Eastern and Southeastern Europe.
Now, NATO, revitalized by the latest crisis after its catastrophic departure from Afghanistan, is seeking to reassure nervous Eastern allies in the longer term. The alliance is eyeing sending new battle groups to Romania and Bulgaria on the Black Sea. Deployments in Hungary and Slovakia have been mooted. It's also looking at bolstering battlegrounds already in the Baltics and Poland, currently totaling around 5,000 troops, which were deployed in 2017 in response to Russia's seizure of Crimea. Meanwhile, the Kremlin, officials and Russian public figures made fun of Western media for running with February 16 as the invasion date, when Russia might attack Ukraine. Take a look.
Ситуація контрольована нашими.
Можно сказать. Сегодня мы отмечаем очередной день ненападения на Украину с точки зрения, так сказать, здравого смысла и реальности. И очередной день, который вот-вот приблизит нас к некой войне, которую нам все обещали на Западе, в Вашингтоне, в Лондоне. Эта самая война опять не состоялась. Опять же, было бы смешно, но мы оперируем все-таки тем, что пугает весь мир. Понятие «война».
Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who spoke with his U.S. counterpart, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, on the eve of the date, said reports of attack timing had spurred confusion among officials. Lavrov said, quote, "I wouldn't say it amuses us, but of course it leaves us deeply perplexed." Russian President Vladimir Putin has demanded Ukraine be forbidden from pursuing its ambition to join NATO and wants to redraw the security map of Eastern Europe, rolling back Western influence. Meanwhile, the threat in Ukraine border remains a crisis. Meanwhile, Ukraine and Russia backed separatists in an eastern district of Lugansk traded allegations of an escalation in fighting today after U.S. claims that Moscow is seeking a pretext to invade. Ukraine has been in conflict with rebels in the east of the country since 2014 in a war that has cost thousands of lives, but the latest reports will intensify fears of Russian intervention. The Ukrainian military's command center in the east alleged that Russian-backed forces with special cynicism had fired heavy artillery at the village of Stanitsia Luganska. It said the shells hit a kindergarten. According to preliminary data, 2 civilians were injured. Public infrastructure was also damaged. Half of the settlement was left without electricity. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba did not mention any injuries, but condemned the alleged shelling. In Moscow, meanwhile, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described the allegation of a Ukrainian escalation as disturbing. Ukraine and its Western allies say Russia has deployed a huge potential invasion force on Ukraine's borders, and U.S. intelligence has accused Moscow of seeking to create a pretext by faking an atrocity. To other news now, to the U.S. A family of a woman shot by Alec Baldwin on the set of the movie Rust sued the U.S. actor on Tuesday, claiming substantial damages for her wrongful death. Let's listen in.
Well, there are many people culpable, but Mr. Baldwin was the person holding the weapon that, but for him shooting it, she would not have died. So clearly, he has significant portion of liability, but there are others, and that's what this case is going to be about, assessing fair apportionment to whoever's responsible for this senseless tragedy occurring. We need to hold the people responsible that engage in this cost-cutting and reckless behavior causing this senseless death. And, you know, we'll see what the jury believes. We believe it's going to be substantial, but it's going to be based on the loss of that relationship and the punitive damages that may be assessed in the case also.
Now, Mr. Baldwin was holding a Colt gun during a rehearsal for the Western in New Mexico in October when it discharged a live round, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. The attorney At a press conference Tuesday, lawyer Brian Panish, as we saw earlier, alleged that the reckless conduct and cost-cutting measures of Alec Baldwin and the other Rust producers had led to Hutchins' death. The attorney representing Hutchins' husband Matthew and son Andres also presented a list of at least 15 industry standards he said the producers had ignored on the set. And these included failure to use a prop gun rather than a live weapon, a lack of individuals qualified to handle weapons on set at the time of the shooting, and the lack of protective equipment for the crew. Panish also alleged that Baldwin had refused training on cross-drawing the gun. He presented this 3D animated reconstruction of the shooting. The lawsuit has been filed in New Mexico, where the incident took place, as what level of compensation the family would seek. And as earlier we heard, Mr. Panish said they believe it is going to be substantial. Baldwin said in December he had been told the gun contained no live ammunition and had been instructed by Hutchins to point the gun in her direction as she prepared to film the scene. In other news, 13 women and girls died after accidentally falling down a well during marriage celebrations in northern India, according to police. Now, the victims were sitting on an iron slab covering the well on Wednesday when it gave way, according to senior police officer Akil Kumar, telling reporters in Kushinagar, Uttar Pradesh state. District Magistrate S. Rajalingam said the well was old and could not take the weight of those sitting on the covering. He said the victims fell down and were crushed under the debris. The women and children had gathered to take part in a marriage ritual in their village. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the accident was heart-wrenching. A 6-year-old girl missing for over 2 years has been found hidden in a dark and wet makeshift room under a staircase in rural New York State, according to U.S. police today. Paisley Schultes was reported missing in 2019, with officers at the time suspecting her biological parents, Kimberly and Kirk, of abducting her after losing custody. Following a tip, the girl was being held in a secret location over 240 kilometers from where she first disappeared. Police obtained a search warrant for a house in the town of Spencer, New York. Officers said they were baffled as to how the girl's abductors had managed to hide her for so long. We'd been at the home almost a dozen times over a 2-year period to follow up on leads, according to Police Chief Joseph Sinagra, telling CNN. They lied to us for 2 years, including the father, stating that he had no idea where his daughter was. The girl is in good health and there is no evidence of abuse, according to local outlet CBS2, reporting that she requested police buy her a McDonald's Happy Meal after being rescued. Her parents have now been charged with endangering a child and custodial interference. The child's grandfather, whose house was being used to hide her, was also charged. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back. Queen Elizabeth is now complaining of stiffness during an engagement. Can you please tell us more? Aribel Celestino joins us live from our UK bureau. Hello, Aribel.
Hi, Alma.
Hello.
Queen Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Queen Elizabeth II complained Wednesday about mobility issues as she carried out her first in-person engagements since fears emerged that she could have contracted coronavirus last week. In video footage released of the 95-year-old monarch receiving two senior Royal Navy officers at her Windsor Castle residence, she could be heard remarking, "As you can see, I can't move," as she stood while holding a walking stick. Meeting the officers in the Oak Room sitting room at the Castle west of London, she pointed to her left leg or foot as the area giving her discomfort. Buckingham Palace declined to comment, but it is understood she was feeling slightly stiff rather than having injured herself or being unwell. While Alma, in a separate development, anxiety had grown about the Queen's possible exposure to COVID-19 after Prince Charles, her eldest son, tested positive for coronavirus for the second time 2 days after meeting her. His wife, Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, also then tested positive, and the couple have been self-isolating since, according to aides. Buckingham Palace has not revealed whether the Queen, who this month marks 70 years on the throne, has taken any COVID tests herself. On Tuesday, she held two virtual audiences from Windsor, meeting via video link with newly appointed ambassadors from Estonia and Spain. Meanwhile, earlier this month, on the eve of the 70th anniversary of her accession to the throne, she held a reception for locals at Sandringham, her estate in eastern England. It was reportedly her largest in-person public engagement since an unexplained health issue last autumn, that saw her spend a night in hospital and subsequently take a step back on medical advice. The palace was criticized for a lack of transparency over the issue, eventually confirming that she had spent the night in the hospital in October for preliminary tests, the nature of which have never been specified. This week's return to regular royal duties after limiting them as the Omicron variant swept Britain in recent months comes with the royal family marred in a scandal. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Aribel. With that health situation of the Queen, did the palace announce that she would be returning to normal duties?
Yes, indeed, as she had her meeting with the two Royal Navies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Aribel, for that update, and looking forward for more. Stay safe.
Reporting from the United Kingdom, I am Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
Well, thank you, Aribel. We from the UK, we go to the US. Washington, D.C. is dropping the city's requirement that people show proof of COVID vaccination before entering businesses in the city as coronavirus or COVID transmission continues to trend downward throughout the region. Here's Jessica Bautista from our D.C. bureau. Jessica.
After requiring people to show proof of vaccination before entering establishments such as restaurants, indoor gyms, and entertainment facilities, the District of Columbia drops that requirement beginning February 15, 2022. Mayor Muriel Bowser announces the latest easing of COVID-19 restrictions on her regular coronavirus situational update.
Additionally, beginning February 15th, as you know, the limited public health emergency that I put in effect in December expires, as will the requirement for indoor venues to verify that patrons are vaccinated. Again, businesses may choose to keep vaccination requirements in place at their establishment with appropriate signage.
The mayor's office reports that since the height of the Omicron wave in DC, COVID-19 cases have dropped by more than 90%, and there's been a 95% reduction in hospitalizations. Although the vaccine requirement, which was first implemented here in the district of January 15, 2022, has been lifted, businesses may choose to still keep vaccination requirements in place. Additionally, Mayor Bowser announces that beginning March 1, masks will not be required at restaurants, sports and entertainment venues, gyms, recreation centers, and indoor athletic facilities, houses of worship, businesses, grocery stores and pharmacies, retail establishments, DC government offices, areas with no public interactions. Masks, however, will still be required at any private business that wants to require use of masks by employees or customers. Schools, childcare facilities, and libraries, congregate facilities, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, shelters, dorms, and correctional facilities, healthcare, medical facilities, public transit, taxis, ride-share vehicles. It also includes DC government facilities with direct interaction between employees and the public, such as the DMV service centers and DHS service centers. The district reports that as of February 14, 2022, there are 475 new confirmed positive COVID-19 cases, 133,295 overall positive cases total, and 1,309 COVID-related deaths. Jessica Bautista, Eagle News, Washington, D.C.
Meanwhile, to Indonesia now, Bali began a tentative reopening to foreign tourists with the first international passenger flight to the Indonesian holiday island in nearly 2 years. Let's listen in.
It is nice to be back. Yeah. It's really nice. I'm very, very happy. Yes, it is. And I'm coming for the 6th time or 7th time. So 2 years, no Bali was long time.
I think it's a great sign that, Bali's opening up, Indonesia's opening up. I read the news that apparently next week it'll be reduced even further. It's a great sign, and Bali needs it.
Saat ini memang regulasinya masih, kalau yang kami terima regulasinya masih 5 hari bagi penumpang yang sudah vaksin lengkap, tetapi 7 hari bagi penumpang yang belum vaksin lengkap.
The resumption of flights comes as the Southeast Asian archipelago loosens quarantine rules, even as it battles a surge in COVID cases fueled by the Omicron variant. A Singapore Airlines plane carrying 109 international travelers and 47 Indonesians landed in Bali today. The island's governor, Wayan Koster, told a press conference the foreign visitors must stay in a quarantine bubble at one of 27 designated hotels for 3 to 7 days, depending on the number of vaccine doses received, according to the new nationwide rules published Wednesday. Singapore Airlines said it will operate daily flights between the city-state and Bali to meet good demand. Other airlines, including Australia-based Jetstar Airways, could resume flights to the holiday hotspot as early as next month, according to Bali's governor, Wayan Koster. Bali authorities trialed a limited reopening in October for a group of select countries, but the response was tepid due to the strict quarantine requirements and the absence of direct flights. Indonesia reported the record number of new cases on Tuesday. Daily infections topped 57,000, according to the government's COVID-19 task force, surpassing the previous peak in July last year during the country's Delta wave. And in Hong Kong, huddled under blankets and thermal shields, dozens of elderly patients are shivering on gurneys outside a hospital serving one of Hong Kong's poorest communities. A grim tableau for the finance hub as its health services buckle under an Omicron-fueled wave. Take a look.
I asked with the doctor, but he said that we don't have any idea how long I need to wait because the number of COVID patients inside, so they feel difficult to manage all the manpower like that.
Here in the country, the Department of Health reported 2,196 new COVID infections, marking another drop in the number of cases from Wednesday's 2,671. This is the fourth straight day the Philippines logged cases below 3,000. In its daily COVID-19 bulletin, the DOH said there were 4,409 new recoveries, lower than Wednesday's 6,130. That bring the country's total recoveries to 3,524,875, or 96.7% of all confirmed cases. There were 107 new deaths attributed to COVID, which brings the total of local COVID deaths to 55,330, or 1.52% of confirmed cases. We go back to the U.S. over in New York, where Joanne Soriano tells us about the absentee voting there. Let's take a look.
In New York, we reached out to the Philippine Consulate General to find out the current status of absentee voting for the upcoming presidential election. Let's hear what they had to say.
First of all, I'd like to limit the discussions to voter registration because we are not yet into the actual voting yet. So as a backgrounder, overseas voting registration for next year's election started in December 2019 and it ended October of this year. And the good news is we had a total of, there was a more than 200% increase of the number of registered voters for next year's elections compared to those who registered for the 2019 elections. It's actually a 205% increase because in 2019, we only had around 4,024 Filipinos who registered as voters. And for this year, we had a total of 8,264. It's more than double. And this is a trend that's usually noticeable when the national elections are for president and vice president.
What steps were taken to ensure good voting turnout despite the pandemic?
We had a very healthy campaign to encourage qualified Filipinos who have not registered yet to register for next year's elections. So we went out to the different states under our jurisdiction during our consular outreach activities. So there are 10 states under our jurisdiction, and we strongly campaigned with the assistance of our Filipino community partners to encourage Filipinos to register as overseas voters. And this would include former Filipinos. We encourage them to reacquire Philippine citizenship and become dual citizens so they may also reacquire their right to vote. And we have had several Saturdays where we kept the consulate open for this specific purpose. And I think that helped boost up the number of new registrants.
No, I agree. And the turnout shows that it worked. And lastly, why do votes of Filipinos overseas count?
Because Philippine policies affect all Filipinos regardless of where you are. And this is one right where each citizen really has the power to decide the future of the country. Because as a citizen, we basically have more or less two choices: accept things as they are and do nothing, or try to do something about it and help chart the future, not only for ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren as well. And this can be done through the power of the ballot. And this is why we really encourage all qualified citizens to participate. So registering is the first important step, but the second and more important step is, of course, to go out and vote. Because when you register and you don't vote, then it's really not as effective. So that's the next challenge that we all face, is how to encourage all registered voters to participate. We really do not dictate who they should vote for. We leave them up to their own evaluation and good conscience. But what we do want them to do is, number one, go out, participate, and vote. And number two, regardless of who may win, whether this is your candidate or not, to support the new leadership of the country, because that is the only way for us to really move forward and prosper.
Joanne Soriano, Eagle News, New York, New York.
Italian prosecutors on Tuesday issued an international arrest warrant for former Brazil forward Robinho and asked for his extradition, following confirmation of his conviction for gang rape, according to news agencies. Judges at Italy's top court, the Court of Cassation in Rome, last month upheld a 9-year sentence for the footballer's part in an attack on a young woman in January of 2013 when Robinho was playing for AC Milan. Jacopo Ginocchi, the lawyer for the victim, told AFP it made no difference to his client whether Robinho served his sentence in Italy or Brazil. The main thing, he said, is he serves it, particularly for the crime committed to protect women. The media reports noted that while Brazil's constitution bans the extradition of its citizens, the international warrant means Robinho could be at risk of arrest if he travels anywhere. And Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva was poised to step onto the ice in pursuit of her second Beijing Olympics title. But with a dark cloud of doping hanging over her, the 15-year-old's closely watched appearance was the climax of a colorful day in the Chinese capital, where there was a judging controversy, a dramatic crash, and more disappointment for U.S. ski ace Mikaela Shiffrin. But all eyes were on Valieva, who was in pole position to win the women's singles figure skating title. She will not be given the gold medal if she does, despite facing days of intense scrutiny after failing a drugs test. The prodigious Russian finished top in Tuesday's first half of the women's singles competition ahead of the all-important free skate that starts at 10:00 GMT. But for the first time in Olympic history, medals will not be presented if the Russian finishes in the top 3, because she could yet be punished for doping. And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Time out muna sa hugutan!
Maglaro muna tayo ngayong linggo!
Tara game! Agad-agad!
With Agamulak!
Welcome back. Imagine walking into a theme park full of desserts. Esther Odanga takes us to a great grand sweet destination, a Candyland theme park in Pattaya. Esther.
Hi everyone! Summer is approaching and today we are here at Pattaya Sweet and Grand Candyland. And since Thailand reopened already for the tourists and the Test and Go scheme already up to the tourists, we will travel here in Pattaya and show you the beauty of this place.
Looking for a unique destination near the capital city, Bangkok? Well, for the theme park lovers, the Great and Grand Suite destination, also known as Candyland, is one to consider. It is located in Pattaya City, just an hour drive from Bangkok. The admission fee on this beautiful place during weekdays is only 99 baht and 120 baht on weekends and holidays for adults, while it is only 66 baht for kids. It is open daily at 9 in the morning till 7 in the evening. You can find a life-size dessert figures from sundaes to candy houses to donuts and many more. Well, summer is fast approaching and this colorful atmosphere is worth the visit. This is a perfect and sweet place to bond with your family and friends.
Indeed, a very fun and exciting place, especially for the travelers who are candy lovers. From Pattaya, Thailand, this is Esther Danga and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Esther. And we have time for one more. Sotheby's announced that it would offer the largest ever blue diamond to go up for auction at a sale in Hong Kong in April. And the sale will mark the first time a blue diamond of more than 15 carats has ever gone under the hammer. Take a look.
So this stone is all about rarity. This really is a rare object of beauty. Being more than 15 carats, it's the largest step-cut vivid blue ever graded by the GIA. It's also the largest vivid ever to come to auction. So rarity really, first and foremost, is what it's about. This quality, the vivid blue color, the internally flawless clarity of the piece, and then being over 15 carats. It's incredible. We do expect the stone to fetch in excess of $48 million US, which would be about $4 million per carat.
Now, the diamond is bigger than the Oppenheimer blue, a 14.62 carat stone that set the world record price for a blue diamond at auction in May 2016, when it sold for $57.5 million. Earlier this month, Sotheby's in London sold the Enigma, the largest cut diamond ever, to come to auction at 555.55 carats for £3.16 million or $4.3 million. Sotheby's said the diamond, which previewed in New York this week, would be offered on a yet-to-be-determined date during its Hong Kong Luxury Week in April. And as always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert and stay informed because we live in interesting times. Good night.